The thing I really, really want you to understand is we're starting a new series today, and it's called Encounters with Jesus. This past week, I tried to lay it out there and put the cookies on the bottom shelf. You need to know what Jesus came to do, and that is he came to take our place, your place, my place, so that we could actually have his righteousness. But who is this that we're actually dealing with? So we need to encounter him. If you're not familiar with all these things, we're going to try and lay it out over this week, next week, and then on the 21st, we're actually having and celebrating this whole idea of baptism that Jesus called us to. So if you have come to Jesus either recently or in years past but have never gone public with your profession of faith in him, we want to get you baptized. It's a wonderful day. Like I said, I'm not going to have contact with you, but Robert, my friend, will be right down here to my left. And if you want to get baptized, come talk to him. There's a whole team that's around him as well. But come talk and let that happen. Christianity was not created by the Bible. A lot of people think it was just like this magic book that appeared, and then here's the prescriptions, and poof, then Christianity was born. You have to understand that it is dynamically different than any other religion you will ever encounter, is that we have 9 eyewitnesses who wrote down what they saw of a resurrected Jesus, and that's what gave birth to the Bible. Christ started the church that we now call Christianity, and then those people, because of their experiences, wrote down what they saw, what they heard, what they felt, all those things, and we are so blessed to have their journals, essentially. The primary ones that you would probably be familiar with simply because you're an American and you've probably heard it, and that is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are called the Gospels, or the good news about Jesus. That's what that word means. In those accounts, those eyewitness accounts, because Matthew was a first-hand guy, Mark was John Mark, who was a protege of Peter, and you can tell by the way he writes and the way he phrases it is that he interviewed Peter over and over again. What happened? What did you see? Luke was one of the world's best historians. That's not just my opinion. You can go and check him out against practically any of history's historians, and he is so accurate. He was a physician of his time. He was a remarkable companion and missionary companion with the Apostle Paul. And then, of course, John is my favorite gospel. John was probably around 16 years old whenever he started following Jesus. And apparently he wrote it down after all the other guys because he was like, yeah, all those things that they said in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, y'all forgot about this other stuff. And then he wrote it down because he says, I was there. I'm just telling you, it's so up close, it's so personal. Particularly with John, you can practically smell what's going on. And, traveling around in a hot desert place, it is actually kind of smelly. So, yeah. Keep all those things in mind because you can go and count them yourself, all these encounters. Let me tell you about something that happened to me again this week, and it has happened to me most of the last 20 years. But it happened again this past week. I was just going to go have a simple retail transaction here in town. And I step up to the cash register, and I put it was actually stuff to put in my eyes, and I said, I need this. He said, that's cool, and he was ringing it up. He's like, can I ask you a question? And I'm honoring, and I go, well, I think you just did. Yeah, see, he said, has anyone ever told you that you look like John Malkovich? I have a picture of John Malkovich on my phone, and sometimes it comes up, and I think it's me. It's that way, and some of you are like, I don't even know who John Malkovich is. He's an actor. And I don't know whether it's a compliment when people ask me, has anyone ever told you look like John Malkovich? I don't know. I'm just saying, I look strikingly like him. What I usually respond is, yeah, I've had that happen to me so many times I've lost count. I'm just trying to figure out how to monetize it. I don't know how to make any money off of it. But then I also add, It even happened to me when I went on vacation to Mexico. I had a Mexican tour guide say, "Did you know you look like John Malkovich?" And I'm like, I can't get away from it. I would also add, I've never encountered John, even though he and I apparently are doppelgangers. I don't know. What is your most memorable encounter? Doesn't have to be somebody famous, but just most outstanding encounter of your life. I'm going to name drop a little bit. I've encountered quite a few people of notoriety. I once had breakfast sitting next to him. He was at that table. I was at this table. Breakfast at the Dusty Rose in Memphis. If you've been around here long enough, you remember it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was sitting right next to me, which was a little bit breathtaking because he's sitting in the same size chair as me. And even seated, his knees were nearly up to my chin. It was crazy. It's crazy. And then he stood up and put on a cowboy hat, and I'm like, dude, I just this. I once hugged Barbara Mandrell. She was celebrating winning Entertainer of the Year at the CMA Awards back in the 80s, and I had the privilege to be there. Of course, she was hugging practically everybody in the whole room. But I hugged Barbara Mandrell one time. Those of you who are my age or older, I once helped with a recording session for Brenda Lee. Nanny boo. Have this wonderful encounter while we were living in Nashville, and my grandmother came to visit, and we were eating out at the West End Cooker. My mom took my grandmother. They needed to go to the restroom, so they go to the restroom, and as they enter the restroom, Reba, who doesn't need a last name, came out of the restroom and was so pleasant. Hey, how you doing? And my mom got inside the restroom with my grandma, and she said, Mom, do you know who that was? And she went, no. And she said, that was Reba McEntire. And my grandmother said, oh, who's Reba McEntire? So encounters can be so interesting. Used to be really good friends in college with Trisha Yearwood. Charlie Daniels was one of my professors. You say, boy, you are into the music. I am. I also got to spend a few moments in conversation with a guy who is one of our best modern day apologists, and his name is Lee Strobel, and that was fascinating. I'm just saying, there's been all kinds of encounters. I got to counting with my bride, Leanne, who's also going through the same affliction with me. I encountered her about 16,000 days ago, and I've encountered her nearly every day for 16,000 days in a row, and I look forward to thousands more. Some encounters are just so different. Every encounter is unique. I've encountered church. I've calculated this for 3,292 weeks. Because I was born in the church nursery. I've been at church all my life. And the reason I bring up all these encounters is because you may be thinking of the most outstanding encounter of your life, but you encounter things all the time, just like I do. I could tell you all kinds of things about Christ and about the church. And some of it's really, really good, and some of it's the ugly side of church. You say, is that possible? Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I will tell you this. I have served Christ since I was 12 years old. Tried to align my life with him. Not every day's been stellar. I've tried to serve willingly, but I've served in practically every capacity. I've held the babies, and I've worked with the toddlers and the grade schoolers and the teenagers and the young adults when they used to call them college and career. Does anyone remember that? And I've been to Sunday school, training union, all the witness trainings on Wednesday night, church choir, practice. I've done it all. Set up chairs, which, speaking of which, don't forget to remind me to remind you that as soon as this service is over, we need to stack chairs. Okay, there we go. I know the drill. I know practically every flavor of every drill at church. I know him. Heck, I've learned it. I've taught it. I've tried to train people, other people, the best stuff. If this was the military, I have served as an enlisted guy, and I've also been an officer. Where I'm going with that is that today, in looking at these couple of encounters that Jesus had with people, I can identify with both of them. Because all that experience that I just told you about means I know a few things. And when you start knowing a few things, you start relying on the things that you know. Are you with me? And the next thing is that when you start relying on the things that you know, then you start telling people, I know, and you don't know. And just like the Bible tells us, knowledge is a wonderful thing, but knowledge without some sort of love in it, it just puffs your head up. And I don't need any help getting a bigger head. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Okay. It's very, very important. And we've been talking about this as a staff recently. Where is that line between trusting God with all the things or relying on your own strength? And for some of you, it's like that line is not anywhere near me. I'm just trying to figure out, what does it mean to trust Christ when I encounter him? How do I trust him with my finances? How do I trust him with my vocabulary? How do I trust him with my relationships? I'm just saying, in my particular situation where I am in life now, I am tempted to stare at challenges. And Lord, I'm speaking this out to your people. We're staring at a challenge, y'all, that if we continue to reach more people for Christ, and I pray that we do, because like I said, God counts people because people count. We've all got to get our hands dirty, got to wade into the mess. And just one practical I'm staring at a challenge. If we continue to grow over the next 12 months and we get to Easter, I don't think one service is going to hold us. And that's not a bragging, because I've been to the point in Rock Springs past where we had 3 services per Sunday. I can't do that anymore. We'll figure out a way. But I'm saying I stare at challenges like, well, what do we do whenever we have to go to 2 services? What does that look like? And I want to rely on what I know and what I've experienced, but at the same time, if I'm supposed to be a Spirit-led person that Jesus is still leading, I want to be able to hear him say, listen, what I did in the past, I'm doing a new thing. Where's that line? It's just really easy. If you've been around following Christ for any length of time, you start relying on your experience instead of relying on Christ. So I just want you to keep that kind of tension in mind, because we're going to see 2 examples this morning, 2 encounters of what happened to Jesus. Who did he encounter? How did they respond to this encounter? It's just a couple of stories. I consider them to be life-changing if I put them into context of my own life. I will say something, and it sounds like I'm being arrogant. I'm not. You'll understand why. I have something in common with both of these stories. And that is, listen to me, I'll bring it back up here in a minute, and I'm not bragging when I say it. I have amazed Jesus in at least 2 different ways. Y'all can go take that as a snippet and play that. Put that on TikTok. That'll be fun. People like misquoted, like, he's amazed Jesus. No, hold on. Let me show you what I mean. In encounter 1, you can look at all these accounts in these Gospels, in these good news accounts, these journals of people who were with Jesus all the time. Pretty much everybody, in one way or another, was amazed when they encountered Jesus. Because, we've been talking about him coming out of the grave. He hasn't come out of the grave at the point in these stories. But there was something amazing and engaging about Jesus whenever he walked into town. He wasn't like everybody else, and yet he was liked by the people who were least like him. He was just amazing. Apparently, his ability to teach was extraordinary, unlike any of the other teachers. And Lord knows the Jewish people had a whole history and heritage of teaching. They had good teachers, but he was amazing. And then Jesus would sometimes reach out and touch someone who was ill, sick, under the weather, diseased, crippled, whatever the case may be. And they'd walk away healed. Wow. That's amazing. And how is it that even in the time whenever there was no sound reinforcement, this man could literally draw a crowd in the thousands? In the thousands. And they would spend all day with him just to listen to what he had to say, because he was amazing. His teaching, his miracles. I think you also see from the people who knew him best, they would say, never seen anyone, heard anyone, met anyone who was more compassionate than this man. Now, back here, right here on our ranch, that doesn't mean that you're amazed by Jesus. You may have heard of him culturally. Heck, you may even use his name from time to time in spicy ways. Which, by the way, his middle initial is not H. Just want you to know. See, I wanted to see who's willing to laugh at that, because then I will know who. Never mind. Okay. Some of you came at Easter and you heard what we had to say and what we sang and all those things, or maybe you've been hanging around for a while, and you would say, well, I guess Jesus is amazing, but if I were to be honest, Jesus is confusing. I would say back in the day, I think Jesus was often confusing to those who knew him best and all kinds of people, and that either led people to being more curious, which means they inched a little closer to say, okay, I heard what you said, I just didn't get the rest of it. And when is your next speaking engagement? Because I want to hear you again. I'm not clear yet. Or if they were confused by Jesus, it didn't lead to curiosity, it led to apathy. It was like, haven't got time for this. Got to go. I hope that's not where you're at. I hope you're more in the, I want to inch a little closer to him. Because my heart's prayer, and I mean this, and those who are closest to me know I mean this. I want you to encounter Jesus in such a way that you truly could say, just like I do, microphone or not, I know that my past, sin, mistakes, everything that was wrong with me, all of it is forgiven. All of it. And that whenever I wake up in the morning, I have a purpose for living. It's not always clear, but I know that Jesus has a purpose for me, and that I also don't live with fear as much anymore, because he is convincing me that he has prepared a home in heaven, and I have an everlasting life. It's already started. I want you to know that. It's not going to come because of some religion. It's not going to come to you because of some professional Christian, some oblong dud like me, who stands up and holds a microphone and tries to convince you of something. It happens whenever you encounter Jesus and you see him for who he is. That's my prayer for you. When Jesus was in public ministry, we know this from studying all the words that were written about him. Yes, most people were amazed at him, but Jesus, it is recorded in these pages, he was only amazed by two things. Scripture states that Jesus was amazed twice. I want to show you the first one. This is taken from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verse 1. They've been over near the Decapolis. You can look that up on Wikipedia. It's cool. Jesus left that part of the country, went over to the area that would have been over on the west side of the Sea of Galilee. And they had been down by the west shore of Galilee. And they returned a little bit further west. With his disciples, he went to Nazareth. Everybody say Nazareth. Nazareth. Okay. That's where Jesus grew up. That's what he considered to be his hometown. Mark goes on, he says, the next Sabbath, which would have been the day of worship, Jesus went to the synagogue and he began teaching in the synagogue. And many of the people who were there that day, who heard him teach just like he always did. Look at what it says. It depends on your translation, but I'm using the New Living. It says, many who heard him were astonished. This was written in Greek originally, and the word in Greek can be translated astonished or amazed. They were amazed at Jesus and how he taught. In fact, after he got done, and you know how you talk in the lobby or you talk in the aisles, this is what the people said. They asked, where did he get all that wisdom? And where did he get all the power to perform such miracles? Let's understand what's going on here. Let's take it off the screen. Let's make it real, because these were real people dealing with real things. Jesus is back in his hometown. This is homecoming. Back where I come from, it's dinner on the ground day. You know the Baptists in heaven because they show up with a covered dish. It's homecoming. Jesus, boy made good, came back to town. Everybody knows Jesus. These towns were not big. Little villages, little towns, hometown boy, national reputation. Everybody knows that. You and I know about the 3 years mostly. I mean, we have a few fragments that they tell us about, these eyewitnesses and what they got from interviewing Mary and others. We know about the 3 years that he was in public ministry. They knew the 30 that came before. They knew that he grew up in a carpenter's home, more accurately, a stonemason's home, a builder's home, a contractor's home. And he not only grew up in that, he learned the trade. They saw him in real time, 30 years. They went to church. They went to worship together. He was at school. They ate with him. Went swimming with him. I'm just telling you, these are the things they did. They laughed, they cried. Everybody knew him. They also knew his recent fame. But they were longtime listeners. They knew him, friends. I think it's safe to say they knew him better than you and I would know him. And they comment, Mark writes it down, we're amazed. They were astonished that he could teach so well. But it's interesting, this time of astonishment or amazement in their eyes did not lead them to faith. It actually led them to doubt. What in the world would be happening here? Same thing that you and I sometimes go through, is that the people who know you best do not give you a fair shake because they see you the way they think you've always been. Verse 3, this is what they said. He's just a carpenter. He's the son of Mary. Heck, we know his brother James, and we know his brother Joseph and Judas and Simon, and his sisters are living right here in the village with us. And watch this. And they were deeply offended, and they refused to believe him. They refused to believe in him. That word offended in Greek means they were angered by what they were feeling toward him. They were shocked. It's a really strong word. It could even be used to mean it's revolting to them. Okay, what is going on here? This is Jesus. Y'all, if you've ever grown up in a small town and everybody knows you, and you ever start getting above your raisin, as they call it, who does he think he is? I want you to know I diapered him back in the day. Who does he think he is teaching like that? He's no better than us. I mean, come on. Why is everybody so amazed at him? It's almost like, why aren't they giving us some credit? Now, just think about this. Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, God in the flesh, is standing right there in front of them. And they are making a mental, emotional, spiritual choice to control their reaction according to what they know and what they've experienced. They were trying to do they were operating from what they knew or thought they knew. It's called motivated reasoning. They were doing all that so they could support their own point of view, which was lack of faith that he was who he said he was. And it led to this. In verse 3 it says, and Jesus, you may want to mark this down, he was amazed. What was he amazed at? It says it right there. He was amazed at their, say it with me, unbelief. You're like, I'm really glad I came to church today. I feel so uplifted and encouraged. Well, there's another encounter, and it is so interesting. It's like the flip side of that coin. Jesus was amazed at a lack of faith, no faith, unbelief, whatever you use. Okay, just keep that in mind. Let's look at the other encounter. This is in Matthew 8. In Matthew 8, verse 5, it says when Jesus arrived at Capernaum, which is a town that Jesus spent a lot of time in. It's on the north end of the Sea of Galilee. Watch the details. A Roman officer came and pleaded with him. Lord, my young servant lies in bed, paralyzed and racked with pain. Let's unpack this for just a second. Do you understand the political situation that was happening in Israel at this time? Rome ruled the world, and they ruled it with an iron hand, the Pax Romana. What they wanted to do is keep everything stable in every country they overtook so that they could collect the taxes. So they were large and in charge. Rome is in the house. This Roman officer, which we actually know, Roman officer in the Greek is translated, he was a centurion, meaning, which is a title, which means he was the commander of at least 100 men, 100 soldiers would answer to him. He was a high-ranking military official. It is a powerful position for an occupying army. So just take that into account. Occupying army. Who wants an army occupying your neighborhood? Yeah. You with me? He's a man of influence. He's a man of accomplishment. He is battle-hardened. If you want to be honest, in any occupied territory, he would be feared and at the same time hated, loathed, despised by anyone who is being occupied. I hope you feel the tension. But you look at the story, and this guy was not your average centurion because this guy was so out of the ordinary on what he did and how it was unexpected. He comes to a Jewish rabbi, in his eyes, Jesus, in an occupied territory. He is one of the people that he's supposed to keep under control. And he comes, and number one, don't skip over the little words, he pleads with him. He is putting Jesus in the superior position. He is taking the lesser position and pleads with him. That's weird. Second thing that's weird is he's pleading on behalf of his servant. There is no good excuse for slavery in any context, but it has been a part of the human condition since day one. The Romans treated their servants or indentured servants and slaves like trash. For him to be actually there pleading on behalf of his servant, that's weird. What is going on here? If his servant was no better than an animal, this is way not necessary or normal. And yet, this guy comes and he seeks out and speaks to a Jewish rabbi in hopes of maybe something is going to happen. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. So he says to Jesus, my young servant lies in bed, paralyzed and racked with pain. And Jesus immediately responds, y'all don't go to sleep on me. He says, simply, I will come and heal him. The willingness of Jesus is just beautiful, isn't it? But because this guy approached him, he asked, Jesus answered, I will come and I'll heal him. And the officer said, whoa, hold on. Lord, again, he's referring to him as the superior. Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come into my home. What is going on here? He just simply says, you know what? I know how this works. You just say the word from where you are and my servant will be healed. He says, I know this because I am under the authority of my superior officers and I have the authority over my soldiers. And in that regard, I only need to say go, and they go. Or I say come, and they come. And if I say to my slave, do this or do that, they do it. This guy knows a thing or two about control. Would you agree with me on that? Yeah, okay. I think he is trained in the areas of control. His whole life's about control. He controls others. He controls situations. He controls decisions. Nothing necessarily wrong with all that. But I'm saying that he is in control, or at least up to that point, because I think if I read his words correctly, he feels that he is out of control. He has no control over the health of his servant, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Anyone in the room ever feel like you are at the end of your rope and you have no more control and you don't know what you're supposed to do? I want you to have an encounter with Jesus, and this is a better encounter than the one he had in Nazareth. I'm just saying, if you feel like you're out of control, you're not among the weak. This guy is not weak. Because imagine his options. He's in the controlling party. He can solve problems, probably got resources for his day of getting help, and yet he's probably exhausted them, probably could have gone any place, probably did go any place. But he hears about this Jewish rabbi and his amazing ability to teach and change things, and he gets the intestinal fortitude to go and talk to this man and say, I need your help. This is a sermon within a sermon. You may want to write it down. When you read the Bible, here's just a few things to keep in mind. Don't skip over the little words, because the little words will often give you a clue, the clue you need to understand what's going on. Here's the other three. If you read specifically in the Gospels, put yourself in the action. You are there. Okay? What would you be feeling if you were in this situation? Second thing, while you're still reading, is find the timeless principle that applies then and it applies now, because it never changes. It is truth. Put yourself in the action. Find the timeless principle. And then the third part is the hardest, and that is apply it to your own particular situation and actually live in faith. That's the hard part. Otherwise, we can sit around and tell stories all day long. Right? Okay. Just imagine being up close to Jesus when all of this is going down. Imagine you're one of the disciples who's like shoulder to shoulder with Jesus, and you're going, how is he going to respond to this? Because I don't think God is ever caught off guard, but Jesus limited himself as the second person of the Trinity, God in the flesh, and he didn't know everything all the time. I just see Jesus being a little bit caught off guard by this. Because Jesus says, I'll come and heal him. And this seasoned soldier says, nope, just say the word and it'll happen. And Jesus is like, say what? Look at verse 10. This is where I get that opinion. When Jesus heard this, this is the second time, there are no more. Second time, Jesus was amazed. He turns to the crowd that's always around, and he said to them, I tell you the truth, I haven't seen faith like this in all the land of Israel. I am amazed at this. Wow. What a statement. He's not Jewish. He's Gentile. He's not even a part of Israel. He's part of Rome. And yet Jesus turns around and says, guys, you want to see what faith looks like? There it is. I'm amazed. Same Jesus, two very different reactions, two very different encounters. First encounter, no faith, and that was from people who said that they knew him well. And the second encounter, he said, I'm amazed at amazing faith from Mr. Control, and he barely knows me. In situation number one, familiarity led to faithlessness. Familiarity can lead to contempt if you're not careful. But in the other, a professional controller who feels out of control simply approaches and he asks for what he needs. And the God of the universe, in human form, Jesus, honors his faith. I'm just talking to you guys because a lot of you want to be in control, and there is nothing wrong with being the boss if you are the boss. But you got to figure out a way like the centurion to say, I am in charge of what I'm in charge of, but I've got to learn how to lose control. And it's not easy. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But I'm just telling you, according to the people who knew Jesus best, he was only amazed by two things. He was amazed by the lack of faith. So lack of faith amazes Jesus, and simple, out of control faith amazes Jesus too. Jesus was not impressed that this guy was a centurion. I mean, that I'm sure he had sweet armor. That's all cool. And like most guys, I think about the Roman Empire nearly every day. I do. Yep. He wasn't impressed by that. He was impressed by his faith, by his ability to say, I am strong, I'm large and in charge, but I am going to choose to trust you because you have the power I do not have. I told you earlier, I have amazed Jesus in two different ways. I've amazed him with my lack of faith far more than I would ever like to admit. And I'm being honest, trying to be humble too. I've amazed Jesus that I had simple faith and I moved ahead whenever he said, let's go. I'm just telling you, Jesus is not impressed by your control, but he will always respond to your faith. Just think about how many times he said, your faith has made you well. Your faith has saved you. Because of your faith, it will be granted. He's not talking about an emotional thing like, oh, I'm going to have faith. I'm going to have faith. Well, you got to have faith. Faith. You got to have. Not that either. Okay? And having faith is not you as a Christian looking like you're constipated. Like, faith is, Jesus, are you who you say you are? And I go, I'm going to trust that you are. Will you do what you said you will do? I don't know, but I'm going to trust you. I'm going to live a real life, and it's going to be a real life of faith. If you want to write something down, today's big idea is that faith is actually trusting God with control. It's a relationship. Are you who you say you are? Will you do what you said you will do? I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust that you are in control, even when my life feels like it's out of control. We're on the home stretch here, and I always want us to be honest, because it's not just about sitting around listening to stories and being hopefully inspired. Let's just be confessional right now. Do you have control issues? I'm looking at you. Help me here. I need you to vote. I'm going to use a phrase, and then I want to see a vote if you think it's positive or if it's negative. Okay? You know, the connotations of it, okay? I'm out of control. How many of you would vote that that is a positive statement? How many of you would say it's a negative statement? Okay. See, we have opinions about control. I'm a control freak. Is that a positive thing? Show of hands on that. Is it a negative? Contrarian. Yeah, exactly. First step to healing. How about this one? Listen, I am in control of my life. Positive? That's what we would typically think, right? Until the preacher got on to you today. It's like, I don't know, is it negative? I don't know. Typically, whenever we say we're in control, that's seen as positive. Whenever we say we're out of control, that's seen as negative. But if anyone is over the age of 50, you know that control is better than chaos. Any of you watch Get Smart? Because control was always better. They were the good guys, and chaos was the bad guys. Missed it by that much. Yeah, see, those are the people who really watched it. The truth is, all of us are control freaks. Why? Because we like control. Control makes us feel better, or at least we think we feel better when we're in control. Because we can say with a straight face to people who love us, you know what? I like to be in control, but I am not a control freak. I don't care what you say. You start defining it. You say, well, a controlling person is someone who likes to drive the car, but a control freak is someone who wants to drive a car that's not theirs, right? I'm in control. My house is neat and tidy. You're a control freak. You tiled and painted your garage. You carpeted your garage. No matter how you slice it, y'all, we all like being in control. And we also like to never admit that we like control. But if what I'm saying is true, and I'm only taking it from God's word, if faith is actually trusting God with control, then maybe it's time that we lose control. Don't know. Can it be a good thing to lose control? Yes, it can be a good thing to lose control if you lose it to God's control. Y'all with me? Y'all rolling? Are y'all picking up what I'm laying down? Okay. I could go on and on about this. In no uncertain terms, Jesus' half-brother James, and man, he wasn't even a fan or a believer of Jesus until after the resurrection. But after the resurrection, you couldn't stop him. He said in his letter, conveniently named James, you can read it for yourself, chapter 2. He said, let me tell you, folks, faith isn't just something that you say when you go to church. It isn't just a God bump that you feel. It's not what you think. It's not even what you believe. He actually said in verse 17, he said, faith by itself, if it's not accompanied by actions, is dead. He said, faith is something that you do. It's actually intentionally trusting God with control in whatever area. It is easy to say to do that, but it is really tough to do, isn't it? You may actually like to control the situation because you're afraid that you're going to fail. Maybe you control things because you're scared of the intimacy of a good relationship. Maybe you control because it makes you feel powerful when people have robbed you of power all your life. Maybe you're in control because you don't trust other people because they have proven to be untrustworthy one too many times, and you've been hurt so many times before. Maybe you like to exert control over other people because you were controlled in every area of your life for year after year after year. Maybe you like to control because you're afraid of what other people may think if they see you're not perfect. I'm just telling you, the more we control, the better we feel. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the more we control, the better we think we feel. And I'm not against wanting to feel good unless your desire to control is actually replacing something that is way, way more valuable. And that's what I want for you. Because the something that your control may be pushing out the door is the joy that is unspeakable when you realize your past is forgiven, you have a purpose for living, and you have a home in heaven. Or maybe whenever your control displaces hope, and I mean real hope, not like, I wish. It's like, I know the check that Jesus has written. It's good because he is good. Maybe you try to control, and that pushes out the possibility of actually experiencing peace that is really almost impossible to describe. And that comes from being in a relationship with the God who loves you. God's not against you. He's for you. He actually wants you to be able to live with confidence. He wants you to have good relationships. He wants you to be wise and make good decisions. See, control will replace something. And typically what control, if we're trying to grab a hold of that steering wheel, is it typically replaces faith. Because they really can't coexist. We've got to go back to losing control can be a very good thing when you trust God with the control of your life. Is he who says he is, and will he do what he said he will do? And so that requires actions every single day. You will have to make this choice every single day. When you pay your bills, when you get up to go to work, when you try to grow up your kids, whenever you're trying to be kind to that neighbor, everything. And it's going to come out in real and practical ways. It might be in your friendships. Just ask yourself, I'm out here on the rugged plains of reality. In my friendships, do I try to control my friendships, or do I have faith in God that he will guide them and control them and I don't have to worry about them? How about in my dating? Do I try to control my dating life and try to manipulate that person to try and see the made-up me? Pay no attention. These are not the droids you're looking for. Or am I actually just being the person that God created me to be? and trust that God's in control of that. In my marriage, am I trying to structure and rebuild my spouse in my image, or am I choosing to believe onto the God who loves my spouse even more than I love them? Am I trying to be the best servant I can be as Jesus has been a servant to me? What about my kids? Am I trying to control them because I'm afraid they're going to make me look bad? Or do I trust that God will give me wisdom to impart to them and realize that He loves them more than I do, which is almost impossible to believe? What about when I go to work, when I go to school? Am I going to try and control the system? I'm going to work the system. I'm going to work all the angles. Or do I have faith that it is possible to live with integrity and work hard and move ahead and just let God? Folks, every day it's a matter of faith looks like I'm going to do what is possible in front of me, and I'm going to trust God with the impossible and the things that I have no control. What about in my health or my pain or my illnesses or diagnosis? Am I going to trust that God is ultimately in control of literally the next breath of my life? What about my money? Oh, I knew the preacher'd go from preaching to meddling. There it is. What if he's telling you the truth, that he gives you the energy and the breath to go and earn a dollar, and he says, just give me a dime. Straight up, first thing. For every dollar. You go, wow, what's that about? He said what it's about. I don't need your money. I'm after your heart. So I'm wanting you to structure your life to give me the first and best of what I've allowed you to earn, because this is a relationship. And you don't need your money running your life. Trust me, I will run your life, and I will love you to the end. And we'll figure out a way to use that other 90% to do things you never dreamed were possible. Here's what I've discovered, is that you and I typically do not set out to eliminate God from our life. We just keep inching Him out because we're trying to feel better. That means we try to control more. Because it's always easier to control our family and our friends, our environment, and our situations than it is to actually have faith, because faith is breathtaking. Could I get an amen on that? Yeah. But that's our default. That's why He keeps calling us to it. Our default is we limit God. We lose sight of His power, His presence, His position. Because ultimately, when you go to sleep tonight, He will still be God. And He will still be in control, even though you have taken some time off. It's okay to resign as general manager of the universe. I hope I'm hitting real close to some people. In fact, some of you are going, why do you keep poking on that bruise? Because I want you to encounter Jesus. I want you to be like me. I want you to be able to amaze Jesus in at least 2 different ways. Could you say honestly, I have amazed Jesus with my lack of faith and my unbelief? Look, you amazed Jesus. You did it by saying, I'm in control. I don't need you. But I really do want you to amaze Jesus through your faith. Because, church, here's the thing of us corporately together. If we're going to be saltier salt and brighter light in our community, we have to keep moving in faith beyond these 4 walls. It happens when we leave here. Very important. I want you to think about this. Hebrews 11:6 says this. It says, so you see, it's impossible to please God without that faith. And he explains this. He says, anyone who wants to come to God must believe that there is a God and that He rewards those who sincerely seek Him. He's there. You say, I'll believe it when I see it. And Jesus said time and again, no, you'll see it when you believe it. How many of you saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? Last scene, and he throws that stuff out there. There's a bridge waiting, and you don't even know it's there. So I challenge you, just take one step, wherever you are. Write these things down. You cannot tackle all of these, but I want you to choose one of them when we're done. Here are some steps towards stronger faith. And listen to them through the voice of Jesus. He says, I want you to acknowledge me. I want you to see me. I want you to acknowledge me. That's where it starts, y'all. Because if in the online campus or the walk-in campus, you're like, I came because Mama made me, and I just don't even know if I believe all this. I get it. Keep coming back, but I'm simply saying at least give Jesus the benefit of the doubt. He is a historical figure. That's a no-brainer. You go, I don't know if I believe all the other stuff. Then do your homework. Acknowledge him. Just acknowledge and believe that he exists. In fact, I wrote it in first person. Simply believe that I exist and that I might be worth your time to look at and talk to and get to know, instead of just using my name to spice up your vocabulary. Just start there. Or I would say he also says, if you've acknowledged me, here's another one. Take the time to watch me. You say, how do you watch Jesus? Is he on video? Have you heard The Chosen? No, seriously, just go back and read the Gospels. These are real accounts from people who paid with their life because they wouldn't shut up about what they saw Jesus. From a first-person point of view, he's saying, watch me. Come, taste and see. Listen to what I say. Check out what I'm talking about. Push on it. If nothing else, just look around and look at all the things that make you wonder. Heck, there's going to be an eclipse. I'm in charge of that. He says, acknowledge me. Take another step. Watch me. Take another step. Follow me. Follow me around. Believe what you can understand. Question what you don't. Absorb it. Feel it. Smell it. Be like those guys who followed Jesus and got to camp out with him all the time. Follow him. But there's going to come a time, and I know this from experience because I've taken these steps. There's going to come a time in which he will turn around while you're following him, and he's going to say, I really want you to get to know me. Not just know that I exist. I don't want you to just stand off at a distance, and I don't even want you just asking questions. Do you know me? Are you in a relationship with me? Ask me some questions. Open up your heart and mind to a lot of unsettling answers I'm going to get. Ask the questions. I will give you answers, but sometimes I'm going to give you answers you don't like. They will make you terribly uncomfortable because they will cost you. Then I would say the next thing, another step you could take beyond that is sacrifice for me, he says. Not because he would say, I'm the most important person in the room. You should sacrifice for me. But you look at him and you go, wait, Jesus, you sacrificed for me. Like, yep, and I just want you to live the same kind of life. When I ask you to sacrifice for my sake so that you can have this great life that I've planned for you, it means you're going to have to give up to go up. Or as Jim Elliot once wrote, he said, you're going to have to give the things you cannot keep for what you cannot lose. Listen to me, church. Jesus says to you, I'm going to bring you to a fork in the road, and you will have to choose. And you say, well, no, I don't. Well, by not choosing, you're choosing. You're going to have to choose, and it will be your choice will you make me your forgiver and leader, or are you going to keep going down your road? And then that last one, it's a life of obedience. He says, obey me. If I'm in charge, if I'm going to be the master of your life, if I'm going to be the leader, the founder and the leader of your life, obey me so that your life will start to line up with what I say. You go, what does that mean to obey Jesus? It means that like while I'm talking, the Holy Spirit just spoke into your life. You need to go and talk to that crazy sister of yours and make peace over that situation. And you're going, I hear voices in my head. And he says, those are not your voices. That's mine. I came and made peace with you. You go and make peace with her. Obey me. You know what? Sometimes I'm going to insist that you do not take any shortcuts with your job. You are not going to cut corners. You're not going to do anything under the table. Sometimes my instruction and your obedience is going to reflect on this. I need you to serve whether you want to or not. You mean that person I don't like? Yep, that's what I mean. It's like, why would I do that? He said, because I already did it for you. My challenge to you, church, is please do not tackle all 6 of those. Pick one. Where are you? Do you need to acknowledge, watch, follow, get to know him, sacrifice, obey? Where is it? I'm just saying pick one and then put your faith onto Jesus and then put it into action. Make it real. Write it down. Say, I'm going to do it. Tell somebody today in discussion and put a date on it. Say, in 1 month, I'm going to look back. Have I made any progress in faith toward Jesus? Make this real. I'm pretty sure we've all been, amazing to Jesus. At least once. Probably by our doubt and fear. But I'm praying for you to have the strength and wisdom to amaze Jesus again. But this time I want it to be because you had faith and you simply said yes to Jesus. I will tell you out of first person, since my first encounter with Jesus, my life has never been the same. And that is my hope and prayer for you. You get it? Good. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we do not want to be the same people that we were when we came in here today. We want to be different. So I'm asking you to give us the courage to put into action what we've been talking about. And thank you, God, so much that you love us. Even whenever we stumble, fall, doubt, fear. You're patient, you're kind, you help us stand back up, you help us dust off our life. And then he says, you say to us, Jesus, you say to us, let's go. Let's go again. Let's do it. Thank you that you are that way. Would you do a good work by prompting us to make commitments today? And then help us to have the courage to say yes to you so that our life is stronger and nearer to you than it was before we started today. Do a good work, Lord. We're going to praise you one more time in song. And then we're gone. I love you, Lord. Thank you for loving me the way that you do. And I pray it in your precious name, Jesus. Amen.